Thank you all for attending. I'd like to bring to order a special call meeting of the Public Safety Beer and Regulated Beverages Committee and the Budget Committee, specifically to discuss BL 2020-143 with Benedict and others sponsors. I'll tell you how we're going to run the meeting today. First of all, I'd like to recognize the Budget Chair, Vice Chair Toombs, who is going to be helping me moderate this meeting. In order to facilitate the discussion, we're going to begin this meeting with the sponsor, Councilmember Benedict, who will give us a presentation, hopefully in the 10-minute range, to present a presentation on the bill to let us know the factual basis for all of this. After her presentation, Sheriff Darren Hall will also share his institutional knowledge with us and give a presentation for the purpose of outlining the history of the core civic contract, our relationship with the state, finances, and other matters that will be pertinent to this. Subsequent to these two presentations, we will open it up for committee discussion and other council members who are not on budget and finance or public safety. Each council member will be recognized in order with budget and public safety given priority. Each council member will initially be given 5 minutes for questions. If they have not exhausted all their questions at that time, at the conclusion of everyone else, they can come back and make another run at it. This was not positioned as a meeting where we would be voting on this issue, so there will be discussion tonight. The committees will reconvene again on Tuesday, at which time a vote will be taken on in each committee. I know that's the way I will handle the Public Safety Committee. I'll let Councilmember Vice Chair Toombs speak to that. So those are the rules and how we'll run the meeting. We will have this meeting. We've allowed an hour and a half for it, so we're going to stop at 5:30 p.m. That's what we're going to be looking to do. So without any further ado, I'd like to recognize Vice Chair Toombs for comments.
Good evening. I think that Councilman Pulley has pretty much covered everything. I had the same impression coming into this meeting that there wouldn't be an actual vote, that this was just a fact-finding meeting to get people's questions asked, and I'm sure that discussion will continue during our regularly scheduled committee meeting on Tuesday.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And now I'd like to begin by turning it over to Councilmember Benedict for her presentation. Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Chair. Should I use I'm going to come down. Should I use
You've got the mics. You want? Sure.
How about now? All right, excellent. Thank you, chairs. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. So we're going to go ahead and get started here about what this bill is. BL 2020-148 is relative to our current code for contracts for correctional facility management services. And the goal here is that after June 30th, 2022, we don't want to enter into any new contracts with any non-governmental for-profit entity, and that all contracts that are active as of that date are terminated, and that any new contracts or RFPs or RFQs that we're working on right now will include that termination date. And I also want to clarify that by detention facility, we're going to use the state's definition of that, which includes all housing locations throughout the city which allow for locally sentenced inmates. So, first of all, why should we do this? The problem with private prisons, we hear many times nationally a lot of press on this, and we've heard issues locally as well. On average, private corrections officer, this is a twofold issue. This is about the employees in addition to the inmates. And so on average, private corrections officers earn $5,000 less per year and receive 58 fewer hours of training, both of which lead to high turnover and to decreased security. Currently, taxpayers are lining the pockets of executives while their facilities are short-staffed and employees are making 100 times less than their executives. As we know, I ran my campaign on a platform of equity, And when we look at stagnant wages in the city, which many Nashvillians are having, it's causing affordability issues both for housing and for cost of living here. So it's important that this allows us the opportunity to bring those wages up by moving those private sector jobs into public sector jobs. Public prisons also provide more transparency to operations, and then private operators unabashedly admit that their business relies on high incarceration rates. This is just one facet of the criminal justice complex that needs to be fixed in our society. And in Davidson County, we have the opportunity to fix this. The current provider that works, the current vendor in our Metro Detention Facility in their 2010 annual report said, quote, "The demand for our facilities and services could be adversely affected by the relaxation of enforcement efforts, leniency in conviction or parole standards, and sentencing practices, or through the decriminalization of certain activities that are currently prescribed by our criminal laws." I would finish with, on average, there are 49% more incidences of violence in private prisons as compared to public prisons. What you'll see today is that we can improve Nashvillians' wages and benefits, we can improve inmate housing conditions, and we can do it at no additional cost to Nashvillians. So let's first talk about one of the for-profit providers working with Metro today. Youth Opportunity Investments works with our Juvenile Justice Center and the Juvenile Detention Center there. They currently average 46.5 inmates per day in the current fiscal year. Some of the stays are usually 3 to 4 days, but some of them now have become up to 1 or 1.5 years. There is a new facility that's been budgeted in the capital, sorry, it has not yet been budgeted. It's been requested and approved once there's financing available in the capital improvement budget. And the reason why that facility is needed is because, like many of our facilities, right, we have a lot of new facilities open up in corrections in the city, and this one is overburdened. It's not set up for those long-term inmates. It doesn't have the modern security capabilities, and accountability measures and penalties need to be put into future contracts that we have. And in addition to that, we should also look for more competition. Our prior RFQ only included 2 companies that responded, one of whom was awarded. We need to seek other solutions out there instead of just those 2 and find ways to manage that business better. So my current recommendation, based on the need for a new facility, is that we allow the Juvenile Detention Center to remain privately managed until a new facility is funded and built, and I will amend the bill so that the bill, when presented, it'll probably be a late filed amendment that will be filed for next Tuesday's meeting, and it will be amended to reflect this change. The reasoning on the right really goes into the information on the right really goes into the reasoning for my change on that. Originally, I very much anticipated that we would get rid of all for-profit providers. In communicating with the juvenile court, I found some information which, again, so the escape in 2019 is of concern. The current vendor has demonstrated a commitment to procedural accountability. They don't have that responsibility in their contract today, but on a go-forward basis, the plan is that that accountability will be there. It's in the RFQ, so no matter who the new vendor is, that accountability will be there. Councilman Glover, I'll only use this temporarily. No, please. Thank you.
Yes, please keep his mic.
Councilman Glover, I have a question, please. No. So,
No, please.
Oh, he'll get me back, rest assured.
all right, moving right back along. So the current Juvenile Justice Center, it houses not only inmates, but also 8 magistrates, and the budgeted inmate population is 40 per day. We're obviously beating that, or exceeding that when we look at 46.5 inmates per day currently. So again, the juvenile court has been approved in the capital improvement budget for a $138 million facility. It's not yet been funded. It's not in the capital spending plan, but it is approved and we're aware that it needs to be done. Some of the challenges we have with that facility have to do with sewage backing up downstairs in the facility. That's probably one of the most extreme issues that we have, as well as the issue with security, that the building wasn't made for these long-term inmates that we have there. we'll say the leadership of the juvenile court has demonstrated their commitment to making sure whomever the next vendor is working with us for that they will have penalties for non-performance should we end up in a situation like we did last November, which I think is very important to this body. So that's the, so I will amend the bill, as I said, to reflect that change for filing for next Tuesday. So moving on to, I get this to. So the other for-profit provider that we have working for us today is Core Civic. They work, currently they house about 875 inmates. That's as of December 31st of 2019. You'll see the count there of who those, of what makes up those inmates. That contract expired last month, and we're currently operating under an emergency contract until the RFP is awarded by a procurement and the sheriff's office, which should happen hopefully by May of this year. All right, my clicker's going a little slow. So looking at, again, at statistics like we did with the other, the average prison guard wage, as I mentioned earlier, I don't know that I did actually, is $44,000. The top five, so when I talk about, let me back up. When I talk about why should we be working with public, why should we be doing this public function, which is a basic function of the government as compared to outsourcing it to profiteers, one of the reasons why is on the first two bullet points here. The top five executives paid, or were paid $11.8 million almost in 2018, total, in totality. The CEO made just over $4 million. The other top four executives made the other amounts that total almost $12 million. The average cost to taxpayers of that contract is $55,000 per day. This company has contracted with Metro since 1992. An important note I think that we should take in is that they moved their headquarters from Davidson County in 2018 to Williamson County, and that resulted in them no longer paying us over $200,000 in property taxes. So that's property taxes. When you look at a partner and a vendor, what investment do they have in our city? And this is $200,000 that they are no longer providing Davidson County that they used to give us. According to their profit and loss sheets, their profit margins are 27.5%. That is company-wide, but on average for our contract, that means $15,000 per day. So the company is earning $15,000 per day, while their guard is getting paid $120 per day. Some of the operational concerns that I have as we go forward is that it's been reported that as many as 8 banks are refusing to give financing not only to our provider, but also to the second largest private prison operator in the country. And those banks they find the business to be risky anymore. So this is not a long-term strategy to do business with these companies. If they're not able to get financing that they need to run their business, then they're not able to do business as usual, which can impact their ability to pay their employees and provide services that we want our employees as well as our inmates to have. Certainly our inmates are jailed and they have been found guilty or they're pretrial and are accused of a crime. However, they should not be subject to cruel and unusual punishment, which you'll see there's been 12 deaths since they began working with us in 1992, 4 of which were homicide or suicides. And then, as we know, most of us are very well aware of the scabies infection that took place in 2017, which impacted 55 Metro employees, 89 inmates, 17 jail staff, 16 court workers and attorneys, and the federal lawsuit is still awaiting trial. And they're currently accused in that case of having employees who were negligent relative to allowing inmates to report that they had an issue that they were scratching their bodies about and it wouldn't go away. So that is a part of that case. So that's the premise for why we're talking about this. But the big question, I think, for the community and that I've been working on since I announced this in November was how will we do this? How are we going to pay for this? What is the impact and how can we as a council get this done? But more importantly, how as a city can we successfully employ people, give them a livable wage, a retirement, a future, a lane for retirement, and then, of course, treat our inmates in a humane manner. So how are we going to get this done? Well, first of all, the cost to taxpayers is zero. There is no increased cost to any Davidson County residents. Tennessee Code provides that all reasonable allowable costs to be reimbursed at full rate. This includes personnel, including benefits, insurance programs, and retirement programs. This includes contract services such as janitorial, laundry, healthcare. Our health department currently is engaged in contracts with the private contractor. That will continue, and they will get full reimbursement for that. Other direct costs for inmate care and treatment are also covered. Depreciation costs are covered in some situations where we have costs that need to, that are allowed to be capital costs that can be depreciated. And by the way, I'm glad to share this presentation with the council as well as to the public subsequent to the meeting. And then also, one thing I thought was interesting about the state law is that indirect costs, including accounting, purchasing, and other services that are provided by Davidson County departments, are also allowed to be reimbursed under the reasonable allowable costs relative to their role to support the correctional facility. So the graphic on the right, we're going to zoom in on the next two slides. And this is a report. You'll see the source in the lower left corner. 2016 and 2017 rates are where this study came from that was published by the state of Tennessee. You'll see that there is currently under law a $39 per inmate per day rate that the state pays counties. However, the state does make exceptions, in particular for 2 counties, but there have been others in the past. You'll see in the highlighted area that Davidson County, all locations, so not just the MDF, but all locations, receives a reimbursement of $53.63. You'll see there's a little B note there. I'm going to cover that in just a second. You also see there's Shelby County, which is not a privately run prison, privately run correctional center. Their reimbursement is $69.60. Both of these figures are well over the $39 per day, which is what I believe most of us have been informed on, and in fact was a part of a report that was published in December 2018 that showed that was the dollar amount. In fact, the state, this is a state report, and it shows that we are getting reimbursed, we can get reimbursed at a higher rate. So that's why this is not going to cost Nashvillians anything. Zooming in to what the note is about, so it's very fine print. Again, this will be distributed, but I'm going to go ahead and read it. Davidson County's contract allows for locally sentenced inmates, regardless of housing location within the county, to be paid for at actual cost determined by the operating cost of the Metro Davidson County Detention Facility with no cap. Fiscal year 2015-16 reported costs at $57.85. I'm going to move past that because these are old numbers, and the numbers have been updated since. If you check in with our state legislature, or even with our just financials from the state, you'll see that they have been updated. Again, the state reimburses the county for also at $39 per day for backup inmates at all facilities. So that would be for any backup inmates. But that's a totally separate thing than going back to how many inmates do we have. We have, the only backup inmates we have are 31, if you look at that. 581 local felons, 51 convicted misdemeanors, 36 federal and other, 115 pretrial felony, and 35 pretrial misdemeanors. Those all get reimbursed at the higher rate. So, again, I want to just reiterate, Nashvillians will have no additional cost. I think that that is the #1 issue that we face right now. We're in a budget challenge. As we go through the next couple of months, we're going to be working hard on the budget. We need to make sure that we're not having any increased costs. This clearly demonstrates, and this has been vetted through the state, that this will not cost Nashvillians any additional revenue. Taxpayers have no impact. Now, I got one slide to go? Okay, thanks.
Go ahead, continue.
Thank you, Chairs. So, milestones. We've got a lot of things happening. We've got probably the best sheriff in the country, and I guarantee you the best sheriff in the state. And he's got a lot going on. His department has a lot going on right now, which is why the date in the bill is set out so far, to June 30th of 2022. From this year, we've got 4 facilities opening and closing. We've also got the RFP going on for the contract renewal. In early 2021, the new headquarters is opening, and so that's going to definitely keep things occupied. We know that I don't ever want to set somebody up to fail. We need to empower people and set them up to succeed. So the goal here is that on July 1st, 2021, we begin transitioning those operations to our sheriff's office, and that by June 30th, 2022 at the latest, and I'm not sure that it'll take a year, but if it does take a full year, then we will then end our contract with all for-profit private operators. My goal during that time also would be, what can we do to get a juvenile detention center built so that we can move away from that private operator as well? So, after that, I guess questions will come later. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Benedict, for that thorough presentation. Sheriff Hall, the floor is yours.
Can I use this one? Is this okay?
Yes, sir.
Well, I've never done this up here, so full disclosure here, I have 2 items to get out of the way. First, I have the crud, so I apologize for Councilman Mendez's mic. I feel kind of rough, and don't let him take that out on me. So, on medication, a little sick. Second thing on this issue, I dedicated my life to this subject when I was 16 years old. I read the book Helter Skelter. I want to know why. Why people do what they do, and what can we do to change it? And I've been on a crusade for 33 years to figure that out. So when you're talking about this subject, I need you to kind of a little bit spare just a second to understand how I got here. In 1988, I went to work. I graduated from undergrad, went back for grad school. I have that all but thesis grad degree. Left there, went to work in the jails in Kentucky for a year. Left there, came back and went to work for Sheriff A. Thomas in 87 and 88. 2 years later, I guess, 2 years later, I go to work for a company called CCA. No one knew what those initials stood for in 1988, and I didn't either. But for a guy who likes doing what I do, I thought it was a great opportunity to learn something. No one even knew what private corrections meant back then. I didn't either. Went to work for them, and those 2 years, I ended up working in Australia for a year and several months of that year in a prison. Had a lot of opportunities. I opened the facility that you're talking about tonight as the program director of that facility. For 2.5 years, I worked for them. I want to get that out of the way. That's the disclosure part. I left them to go back to the government in the sheriff's office, became eventually the chief deputy under Gail Ray, who was the sheriff for a while. I worked for her for 8 years, and then I was going to run for sheriff. So I ran for sheriff 20 years ago. And in running for sheriff, I got this question. Long before there was this heightened awareness of what private corrections was. Wait a minute. Are you going to privatize all the jails? And I looked at whoever said that to me, and I'd say, look, I'm a prideful person. I can run it as well, if not better than they can. I will never privatize a jail that I'm responsible for, and I never have. But let me be real clear. I'm not for or against private prisons. You know why? I worked for a sheriff who went to prison for mismanaging it. There was a prison in a county, a jail next door to here where the sheriff is in jail tonight, I think, for mismanaging it. And so I'm committed to the facilities and the operation that we run. I don't really get distracted in this subject like others do, and that's okay. But I don't want anything I say to sound like I support or oppose it. I'll talk about it. I'm not opposed to the bill. I've got a lot of problems with what I just saw for the first time. Never even saw some of that, ever. So I'll talk about that, but I don't want to come across as pro or con, because if I believed in privatization for everything, I'd have privatized all the jails, if I could have, 20 years ago. That's not going to happen. But on the other hand, there are plenty of excuses around this town, this state, right now, in our corrections system. Commissioner of Corrections is a good friend of mine. Scathing report came out just a week ago. 10 very serious concerns about our prisons. And those 10, and 3 of them also said and also included in their private facilities. So there was 10 findings. 3 of them had private prisons mentioned in there as well. Here's what I worry about. I'm a corrections person. That's what I do. I believe in it. I don't think the government or our people really do. They don't understand how complex it is. It's a lot more complicated than a slideshow. I've been doing this for 33 years. And what it takes to do it right is not private or public. It's an investment, a commitment, an understanding of a very complicated subject. It's not hyper-political like it is right now. And so it is very difficult to get facts in today's world. But I can tell you how we got here into this situation. 1988, as I said, it's also the year I started. The Nashville jail system was taken over by the federal court. We were housing people in an unconstitutional way. I went to work there, I was a peon. We were housing people in hallways, in tunnels. You can read it. I was there, I promise. Federal court said, you don't know what you're doing as a government. We're taking it away from you. So the federal court took it over. And so they argued and yelled at the city about fixing it. And so a lot of blame came out as to what the real problems were. And these are all real, but let me focus on the main one for tonight. Part of the reason we were so overcrowded is there had been a backup of state prisoners backed up in our jail system. So you would see all these state prisoners who were convicted belonging at the prison system and jail inmates who were awaiting trial in the same units and in the hallways and sleeping in tunnels. So the federal court said, we don't hear excuses. What are you going to do to fix it? The county was the one responsible to do it, and the county was saying the state's inmates are in our way. So I wasn't in the negotiation, but here's what happens. What happened? The county and the state agreed that those inmates that were backing up in your jail system needed to go somewhere. Let's build a facility for them. It was chosen to go on Harding Place. That facility was to be built. Well, guess what? The land was owned by the state. The state said, we'll give you the land to build it on. Metro said, well, we'll give you the money to start designing the building and give you some, I think it's called a land grant, but some version of money. And eventually the building was built for $20 million plus. So before it ever opened, it was decided with the state and Metro government that it would be contracted out. It's never been publicly managed. So what you have here is state land, Metro money to build the building a little bit, but the state committed to paying back the money over the 20 years. And they paid it back. So every dollar ever spent in that building is state money. Every inmate, I want to go through a slide in just a minute, but every inmate set to ever go there has been paid for by the state of Tennessee. You've never paid a penny for them. There are some exceptions on Councilmember Benedict's numbers I want to talk about. I need your patience on this because this city council decided years ago to not move the facility to Harding Place. If you were here, you were a part of that. When you decided to not do that as a city, we had to tear this building down and replace the building as we're doing now. Those inmates you made us move out are at Core Civic, which are the people you indicated as misdemeanors and holdovers. That's really not indication at all of what's going on. Okay, can I have that? That was our fault, yours and mine, because we displaced the inmates. So don't let that represent what's really going on. I promise you that's going to end when we open the building. So that's not really an indication of the building. Every inmate ever sent there has been paid for by the state, except that group that you made me move because you decided, if you don't remember, I was opposed to that, to not move them out to Harding Place. The building's been paid for by the state. It's been expanded. There was a $10 million grant given to the city to build onto the building since it's open. Just a few months ago, the heating and air unit went out, $600,000, send the bill to the state. They pay for every bit of it. So every inmate, every cost has been associated to the building have been the responsibility of the state of Tennessee. So what's happened over those years is it is a prison, okay? There's a big important thing to me. Jails and prisons are like comparing nursing homes and emergency rooms. They're not the same thing. Sheriffs in this country run jails. I just left the nation sheriffs yesterday. They run jails. Those people in jails are awaiting trial and serving short misdemeanor sentences. That's what it's set up by the Constitution, really, to do. Prisons are run typically by the state of Tennessee, and those folks are convicted of sentences that are usually most always over 1 year. So back in the 88s and 90s, the issue was those inmates that were backing up in the county, then the state was saying, well, we don't have room for them either. Well, let's build something. So the land was granted to Metro. Metro fronted some money. The state pays the money back over those years and began housing people, and every inmate's been paid for by the state. It was contracted from the beginning, and multiple times that contract has been renewed. So, in fairness, because we have plenty to do in the sheriff's office, always, we have been focused on running the jails. That's the emergency room. The nursing home had been contracted out because it's really the state's responsibility, and the money from the state pays for it anyway. And so when we would RFP or send an RFP out, it was awarded through a competitive bid process, and who received the contract has been CoreCivic every time. The state approves that, or at least acknowledges all that. They have to pay the bill. We initiate the RFP. That's complicated, but we initiate the RFP for the process. I employ one person to be the contract monitor on site. That person's job is not to stop an escape, not to stop a death. I would love to stop both of those. They will happen in correctional environments somewhere in the country, regardless if it's public or private or me or anyone else. But that's not the monitor's role. You know, there's mention of scabies up here. Do you know when that was written, we had scabies too? The jail that every inmate at that facility came from here. So it's not fair to throw stones because you don't like privatization. I think we run it better than anybody. But I will tell you, for me to sit here and act like that's not occurring in both operations, first time I've ever seen 12 deaths. We had a death this weekend. Anybody know about that? In our system, right? So I want to be real careful that we don't throw stones at a system that you're indicting me. I have an employee there who knows more about corrections than anybody in this room, right? And that's what she's done all her life. She's fantastic. But her job is to evaluate, are they complying with the contract? Now, that contract, in fairness, could be enhanced. I spent a year and a half producing a document that was sent out for Councilmember O'Connell. I didn't do it. I put 6 staff for a year. Analyze everything. Spoons, knives, paint, costs, utilities, everything. Let us know. I've never really analyzed it because I think sheriffs run jails. That's a prison. But if we're ever forced to do it and the city wants to think about it, let's really put it together. We did that. We spent a lot of energy to do it. Year and a half of work, a lot of activists, some of the most impassioned people about this subject were in the room with us throughout a year and a half. We concluded that with the cost that it would take to run it for Metro. We provided that to Councilmember O'Connell, all the council members. We came and met with the mayor then, Briley. And I think Councilmember O'Connell released the document in September. The reason all that's important is I have a duty and responsibility for the inmates that are out there to, if we're going to contract again, I need to get busy. It's 6 months of work just to bid the thing out. And so we're coming to the end of the contract with some time certainty and concern, and I knew we're not going to take it over. I have much more of a priority across the street right now that I need to make sure is done right. That's $200 million. And so here we are going, and I needed to get everybody at least aware of what was happening from our end. So Councilmember O'Connell released the information. I'm not speaking for him, but I can at least say what I saw him say in the media, which is I'm still dedicated to seeing this end moving forward, but to now may not be the time to do that. And he wanted to work and look at the state to see if we couldn't get them to do a better job. I met with the state senators at his request. To get them, I spent the same time talking with them. This is late in the report. So then I turned my guy loose, who handles all this procurement process. It's a lot of work because I believe we're at a point through a year and a half of work, through a council member and some activists in town to understand, keep talking, keep wanting to do it, but right now is not the time. And there's other reasons why we needed everybody to understand. The first thing is most people, and I would bet most people coming in here tonight didn't know that it's state money. You're not paying 1 penny for it. And so when a lot of times people would say, well, hey, why don't you just take that over? That's not that simple for a whole lot of reasons. I've been here 33 years, been the sheriff 20. In 20 years, 3 different mayoral administrations. This is the first time Councilmember Benedict brings up the rate and the cost settlement. We submitted for years a thing called a cost settlement report to the state of Tennessee. What it is a matrix. You fill out all this paperwork and you tell them, here's what it costs us to house people. And so, you know, ours is over $100. I don't even know what the number is anymore, but here's what I want you to know. You calculate all your costs, you submit that to the state of Tennessee, it documents your reasonable allowable cost, and the state moves a sheet of paper and keeps moving. Been doing that for years. That's not unique to Nashville. 3 different administrations. Our best time was when we had David Manning as the director of finance, The legal director at the time was a guy named Carl Dean. We packed up and we're going to the state. The reason that's important, David Manning come from the state, had all the secrets of how to beat them. And had given us some money, reasonable allowable cost. We went up there and sit down. We had the best fighter in the group, David Manning. Y'all know him. Very respected. We go up there, kick, scream, yell, threaten, lawsuits, everything else. We've been getting $39 ever since. I can give you another story. Mayor Riebling was involved. Now Mayor Dean's involved. So don't, and by the way, we were told 7 years ago, check before I came up here, 7 years ago, to no longer send the reasonable allowable costs. We've been doing it for 30 years because they're no longer going to come and audit anyway to see what your costs are. And understand, my sister lives in Perry County, smallest county in the state. I live in one of the largest. She gets $39 a day in her jail, so do I. So it's not really on reasonable allowable costs. It's a total facade. I can't speak to Memphis, but $69 is not going to get close to what it cost us anyway. So whatever that cost becomes, we can talk about it. I want to be real careful, and first time I've heard this, because when the bill was filed, whoops.
Feel free to continue.
When the bill was filed originally and publicly in the media and everything else, it was relayed to me, it was a $20 million, and that was okay. So this is the first time I've heard it's not going to cost anything, and I promise you that's not something the state's going to agree to. Now, we can argue and sue and kick and scream. Maybe we can get someone to go with us and fight and get it done. But I don't want you to act like that we just overlooked the law. We've known about that forever. Some of the best people here, Carl Dean was really a good legal director who knew corrections and inside what was going on, and David Manning was fantastic. So I don't want you to act like, or I don't want to act like that we didn't know about this reasonable allowable process. Every sheriff I'm familiar with, every county gets the $39 a day. The Shelby County is news to me, but we can figure that out. And again, it may be something that we didn't have the right fighters or the right lawyers, but that was news to me. So I guess my summary is I don't want to sound like I'm against privatizing or for privatizing the facility. What I'm trying to tell you is you need to be real careful. The facility that you brought up a minute ago, if we're all honest, we probably didn't know a few weeks ago that the juvenile facility is all Metro money. Is a Metro contract for Metro services paid to the juvenile court. That may be the right thing or wrong thing to do. That's up to you. This situation is not that. They are not Metro inmates. The state pays every dime of it. It's not a Metro building except for it's on the property of the state until we kick them off, basically. So I don't want to mislead people to believe if we took it over, you're taking over many things, which can be done. I've said many times, can we? Yeah, we can run a correctional facility. Should we? No. The reason why? Sheriff runs jails. It's a prison. Second thing is, I'm a taxpayer. I don't believe you should be asking me to supplement the state's responsibility. Now, I'll do it if we come up with all the, I shared this with Councilmember Benedict, under our conditions. And what does that mean? I've got duties that I've already committed to, right? And the city wants me to. I promise you, those are expensive, important things, and she mentioned those. And 2022 was a date I sent to her as, let us breathe. I'm not going to waste your time tonight, but that building should have been open 2 months ago. It's not. And it's not my fault. So here's what I don't want to do. I don't want to marry a date. I don't really want to marry an idea that we think the state will pay us. And I don't want to, as sheriff, commit to you tonight that I can do it until all those things are clear. But I don't want you to feel like I'm anti-government running the facility. I'm in the government. I love what we do. So don't paint me with he's just for privatization. That doesn't make any sense. I just want to I owe you the definition and the description of how we got here and where it is. So with that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sheriff Hall. Appreciate you for that thorough presentation. For the benefit of council members who came in a little bit late, moving forward, what we're going to do is we're going to recognize people in the order with priority given to budget and finance members and public safety members. We're going to limit you to 5 minutes on round one so that we can be respectful of everyone's time. I did mention 5:30. The presentations went a little bit longer than anticipated, so we do have a hard stop at 6 if we need to extend the meeting out beyond that. So with no further ado, Councilmember Druffel, you are recognized.
Thanks. For Councilwoman Benedict, just a quick question. I'm trying to reconcile, there's a lot of numbers out there, trying to reconcile $55,000 a day that we're paying to per inmate of $39. I might have gotten confused, but I'm trying to get where our cost is $55,000 a day. Just if you could help me reconcile and clarify. Thanks.
Go ahead. You're back to Benedict now, aren't you?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I know. I'd be glad to take Mr. Glover's seat should he let me. So thank you, Mr. Druffel. So currently the contract is valued at $20 million for a 5-year contract. Wait, $20 million per year. So that's $55,000 per day.
Councilmember Druffel, you all finished?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, thanks very much. Councilmember McConnell, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess, so the biggest piece of new information for me tonight, and having worked on this for 4 years, is the idea that the state contract gives this cost allowance with no cap. And I suppose it's probably worth asking our legal counsel to weigh in on this, because I think that's the underlying question here is, in all of the analysis I've both participated in delivering and just seen, the greatest risk to any of this has been unanticipated costs. And so if in fact we can secure whatever rate from the Tennessee Department of Corrections is necessary to pursue this, this is a no-brainer. But what I just heard from Sheriff Hall is in fact not that. And so I think for anybody in this room to be able to make an informed decision about what our potential risks of changing anything are, it helps us to understand what those costs are. So Mr. Cooper, I might ask you to weigh in on the legitimacy of that contract, how we could leverage it to Metro's benefit, and whether it would pass legal scrutiny in terms of de-risking this.
So let me start with the disclaimer that before a week ago, I had not had the reason to research any of this stuff before. So this is all a new area for me. As Councilmember Benedict said, the state law does provide that if you are housing locally sentenced felons, that you are to be reimbursed for your reasonable allowable costs. There is a state regulation that goes into a little bit more detail about what that means. I'll read it to you. It says a county's reasonable allowable cost for housing felons for the state will be determined by the judicial cost accountant in consultation with the Department of Correction upon the county's submission of cost data sheets and supporting schedules, and that's what Sheriff Hall was referencing, in such form as is established by the judicial cost accountant, showing the actual reasonable and necessary cost incurred by the county in housing felons in a local correctional facility. So arguably, Metro should be entitled to its full cost if it is providing those services. The state law says that there's two ways that local governments can house locally sentenced felons. One is through an actual written contract, which is what Metro and Shelby County have. There may be one other city or county that has a contract, but everybody else in the state, it's not a written contract. It's just kind of I guess, an as-needed basis. So we do have a contract, and therefore we could argue that we're entitled to our full costs. But the trump card is that the state determines what is reasonable. So we would make our argument, and I don't know, I mean, Sheriff Hall just said our costs are in excess of $100 a day. So we would have to make the argument that all of our costs are reasonable and we should be paid that amount. And the state, subject to the General Appropriations Act, meaning the General Assembly determines whether it gets funded, would then consider that. But under the law, I think we have a good argument that we should be entitled to that amount. Whether we would get it or not, I don't know.
Well, let me ask a clarifying question then to Sheriff Hall. I mean, you're talking about a $39 rate that you currently get, and I'm assuming your rate sheet suggests an amount higher than that?
Either way, yeah. Another piece of, yes, the answer is $39. We are over $100. Now, when I say we run all the jail facilities across the town. You have to do all that into the math here. So that makes it a little bit different, because when you say my cost, I'm talking about us living in our jail system. Here's something that David Manning taught me that I think is worth noting. If you take inmate Darren, and he's a state inmate, let's say he just got convicted today, and you move him to Williamson County tonight because he was convicted, and say, now hang on in the jail until we move you to the state. That happens in many counties, as Mr. Cooper just said. And so what happens is the state historically has convinced people that $39 is enough. Now here's their argument. Well, he was just an inmate already in a cell that you already had to build, and you were already going to turn the lights on. You already had an officer to work. And so it shouldn't cost you.
Go ahead and finish your answer.
Okay. So it shouldn't cost you what it's costing you to house all your other people. And all I would say to you is, I mean, that's okay if you want to make the argument. Understand, this is a standalone facility where everybody in there is your cost. And so that's important. And the other thing I said a minute ago as an example is every county is getting the 39, so it tells you that reasonable allowable is not really legit, because in Perry County, there's no way it costs the same as it would in Williamson, or just pick any other county. And they give 39 to every sheriff except the contract, and as was mentioned here. So yes, we would be in the 100 range at least, and we could do that, but we, quite frankly, 7 years ago, they quit asking you to turn them in.
Thank you, Councilman McConnell. Go ahead.
Thank you. So a couple points on the sheriff. I want to clarify, you just mentioned the $100 cost is based on jails all over the city in addition to the prison. So we're jails and prisons, not just prisons? So like, what's the cost for the prison itself as compared to the jail and prison? And then secondly, there are 18 other sheriffs in the state that outsource, or that manage this for the state, that are doing it for less than $100 per inmate per day. Why is our cost so high?
Can I go backwards? Because it costs a whole lot more to live in Nashville than it does our county. We pay a whole lot more to our correctional officer. We're the highest paid correctional officer in the state of Tennessee, and it's not enough. It's nowhere near what you should pay these people. So the apples, what's?
You just mentioned the jail and prison.
Yeah, I just want, but to be real clear, whoever they are, I have no idea who you're talking about. They don't get anywhere near what it costs to work here and live here, right? I mean, that's part of it. Jails and prisons, I love to separate the two, but if you were asking me what does it cost me, it's over $100. And that's what the question I thought was. What is your reasonable allowable cost? Just so you know, in these years we had to turn this form in. We send one in for the Core Civic facility. We sent one in for our jails. The irony is they send Core Civic the rate, which is a contractual agreement. They send us $39 even though we were showing $100 every time.
Prison.
No, for our jails. We would submit that cost in our jail system to the state of Tennessee, saying, because what I forget to tell you is, there are days where the inmate who's going to Core Civic, they spend in our jail, 1 or 2 or 3, it's just that. And others who go on with larger sentences to the prison system. So we still have reimbursement coming to us from the state of Tennessee for multiple inmates. When we get that money, it is the $39 rate. Even though we can prove to you the day that we kept that person 1 day, what is $110, we get $39. So we've always had to do what we call the reasonable allowable cost matrix. It just never means anything when the reimbursements occur. And that's what led us and 3 other mayoral administrations to go up there and argue this case. Understand, if they start altering the rate in Nashville for inmates housed in Nashville's jails, you're going to start feeling every one of those obviously all these other counties screaming the same thing.
Okay. Councilmember Johnston, you are recognized.
So I understand that the concern is for employees and for inmates. I feel like the lower pay and the less training is something that could be handled by, like Sheriff Hall said, by tightening up those contracts. And that, to that point, the treatment of the inmates, you know, I think we learned when we took a deep dive into the YOI contract at the Juvenile Detention Center that it was not only failures on the part of YOI, but it was also failures on the part of the Juvenile Justice Court, because they are the ones who monitor that contract. So when something goes wrong at that facility, it's just as much our responsibility as far as the juvenile court, who is monitoring the contract to make sure things are going properly, as it is for YOI. By the same token, if something's going wrong at the core civic, that would be on Sheriff Hall, because he's the one that's monitoring that contract. And so do those contracts need to be tightened up? I know in the YOI instance, absolutely it does. In this one, I don't know. I haven't really looked into the core civic. So I think that that's something that could be easily fixed. The other thing is that we have the ability to cancel this contract with core civic. Each renewal since January 1st, January, what does it say? Anyway, it was passed on February 8th, 2017 by legislation sponsored by Mr. O'Connell, that all contracts for the provision of management services for correctional facilities owned by the metropolitan government executed on or after January 1st, 2017 must be approved by resolution of the Metropolitan Council duly adopted by 21 affirmative votes. So when that contract comes up, we have the ability to say, no, sorry. The other thing that you mentioned was that there was only two, I think this was you were referencing the juvenile justice. In the RFP process, there was only two people that applied. Certainly, we can't control who applies and who doesn't. Should we open that up to nonprofits? I think so. I think that would be helpful. Do we need to outline what we want in those contracts much more, much better, you know, and demand the things that we want to demand? Absolutely. I want Sheriff Hall, if you could speak to, if we were to move away or take over the core civic facility, because it was state land that was given to us, that not only has the core civic building or our building that core civic manages, along with our jails, along with the South Precinct, it's a whole thing over there. Could you speak to what the ramifications would be if we were to all of a sudden take that back over?
We're good. Okay. John Cooper and I just had this conversation right before we started. So a couple things. When we did our comprehensive review for a year and a half, we asked Metro Legal then that type of question. So it's in the report that there is language, I'll let the lawyer handle this, but it came from Metro Legal then. There is language in there that if the county doesn't satisfy the state's need to remedy this overcrowding problem, that the land could revert back to Metro, back to the state. That's their language. I put it in the report directly from Metro Legal. You named them, but I want to make sure. We've got South Precinct, we've got Animal Control, we have a Metro Park, we have a recycling center, we have 4 of our facilities on that property. So if it happens, whatever that negotiation would become, it is a huge decision if they were to ever pull that card on us. But we asked Metro Legal as a part of this what would happen or could happen, and they've legally given the advice that it's in there. I've read it myself, some of the print. Can I hit 2 things that you just to kind of to mention to you? One of the things I didn't say a minute ago is we were pressing to get a new RFP done because the old one was running out, and if we're not going to take it over or do anything differently, as we gave Councilmember O'Connell, we needed to hurry up and get going. What I didn't tell you was we had continued to meet with the activists and Councilmember O'Connell about improving the existing RFP. And I said to everyone in the room, you tell us what you want to improve it. We will include what we can. I'll communicate what we can't, those types of conversations. It went back and forth. I think there were 22 recommendations from the community. Don't hold me to this, but somewhere in the 13 to 14 are in there, approved. Some of them we wouldn't do. I mean, these are things I would just tell you. have video cameras monitoring everything they do. Well, we're not going to do, I mean, there's things like that. But realistically, the majority of the requests to enhance the contract are in this RFP that's floating around right now in purchasing. Second thing I want to bring up, because it was important to me, when this thing was first contracted for in,
Go ahead, continue your answer.
in the late 80s, 90s, the city required of a private company, whoever's going to get it, that you must be accredited. Now, that sounds silly now, but back then that was unheard of. We didn't have a jail one accredited. The prisons had 0 accreditation. But we said as a community, whoever we were, it wasn't me, you must raise the bar from what we presently have in our own system, meaning go reach a bar that we can't do. Keep in mind, our jails were in the hands of the federal court. And so what I would suggest to you, wherever we go, just don't forget, it's on us, you, to decide how high the bar needs to be. In fairness, we've not raised the bar because it is a prison to us. If the city says we want the bar this high, we have never said, let's go put it in the RFP and improve it. And therefore, we've just done that, at least for the present RFP, because the city and community was saying we want better quality service. So I just didn't want to, we didn't ask for much more than a vanilla contract because it's a prison. And as it came through us, that's not really our focus. It's like your neighbor's kids being in your house. We're not necessarily raising their kids. The analogy, right? We're working on our own. And so if you want us to take their kids into our thoughts and raise the level of service, that can be done via an RFP if you decide that's what you want to keep doing.
Thanks, Sheriff Hall. I'm going to recognize Councilmember Glover and then turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Toombs. Councilmember Glover, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly, if I may, Chair, I'm going to ask that you indulge me for a moment and engage with Sheriff Hall, because I think there's some information that I think is absolutely critical. And if we run out of time, if somebody will share their time with me, I would be grateful for that. So, Sheriff Hall, if I could, let's do a little talking, because you know, you talked about. Well, first of all, let me establish it. The new facility across the street, is that a jail or a prison?
To jail.
It's a jail. And the jail was originally supposed to be in Antioch. So people in Antioch, don't get mad at me. Let's walk through all the history here for a second.
Don't make me do that.
Well, no, I'm going to do it. I'm just saying. But so the proposal was several years ago at the end, and I believe it was the last budget we did in the Dean administration. It was to move the jail out of Harding because there's already 3 or 4 that existed out there, correct? Okay. The community said, no, we don't want it. We don't want it. In the 11:30th hour, it got knocked out. I put it back in through a bill. I think Council Cooper will tell me. I think we did for like $113 million. Right. Am I remembering the number correctly?
Right.
All right. Okay, but you and I worked on that, and we got it back in, and we got money back in, because you were kind of running the same problem across the street where you had the feds on you. If you don't start fixing this, ADAs and other things, we had some major problems coming.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
All right. I just heard you say a moment ago that when all is said and done across the street over here, we're at around $200 million. Does that sound about right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So here's the part that scares me to death about the conversation we're having right now. A lot of folks are walking in, and we're hearing this. I'm not saying it's not a good conversation, but you know as well as I do, we're about to enter the budget cycle, and I think we need to be very cautious. Here's where I'm going with it. We moved. There was no time. I mean, it all happened, within 24 hours, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir.
Taken away. I did a resolution or an amendment to the bill with our counsel, Mr. Cooper. We put it back in. It created a whole storm for about 24 hours there, and then ultimately it passed unanimously on the floor because I think everybody understood we had to get there. So the moral of the story is that, you know, I trusted you to tell us what we needed to do. You told us that. We chose not to do it, and in return, we're paying $87 million more, give or take. So I'm just asking everyone to please indulge you throughout this process and make sure that if it's the right thing to do, that we're fully engaged on it, because the taxpayers can't afford to keep picking up those kind of mistakes. Is there anything that I've said here that is outside of the boundaries of about what happened? I realize we're pulling conversations from years ago, but is that pretty close?
That's my memory as well. And like I said, that resulted in us having to use beds out there in the interim. And that's some of the numbers I think Councilmember Benedict brought up. So those folks are temporarily out there. Actually, it's women. It's all the females because that's where we had to displace. But yes, I think your dollars are right. And the circumstances, how we got here. And of course, we're about ready to open this, we think. And that's been our priority ever since then.
Okay. And then ultimately, not even over here, we had to do a number of upgrades there. Would you say that it's secure enough at this point to encompass if you had to take everything over? And then I would want to ask one more question. Do you have an estimate, or if I could, I guess I'll ask our legal counsel, Mr. Cooper, do we have an estimate if we did this, will we have $1 more that taxpayers of Nashville would have to spend? If it's $1 more, what do we think the top of that ladder could look like? If you could share that, and I don't know if I'm asking the question very well.
So let me, and obviously there's new news tonight as far as I'm concerned, but the report that we spent over a year and a half to do and worked very hard on it is, this is executive summary, but basically it says $20 million the first year, $16 million every year thereafter. That's taken into account the $39 rate that every other county, the way it's set up, is receiving. If you were to receive the CCA rate, the core rate that they're actually just getting now, I don't have it in front of me, it's 61. So my point, when you do the math, then we're still off some monies. And again, I'm not, some of this is news tonight. My suggestion that not legislatively, but to get comfortable with it, I'd love for the state to say and have the argument whether you can ever get reasonable allowable costs. It hasn't happened with three generations of administrations. Maybe we could be lucky enough to do that. But I'm going off the history. I've had a long history of this subject with really good fighters to go help us. We've not been able to get that happen. So I'm going off of $39, and that would put you at about $20 million.
All right, Chair, I'm going to ask if anyone will share about another minute or two with me, please. Thank you.
Well, the next person in the queue is actually Councilman Nash.
Thank you.
Is he on? Oh, what I'm doing? Why is it? There we go.
Yeah, a couple of issues. I really am concerned about the budget in that even if we were say, let's do it, there's going to be costs on the front end, hiring and training people. We can't just say, oh, you're going to start November 1st. I mean, there's a huge turnover kind of procedure that we're going to have to go through. And so I hate putting a date on it. Even if we wanted to do this, putting a date, I think would be inappropriate this time because we don't know what that budget's going to look like in a couple of years. We're in a deep hole right now, and we're going to be trying to get out of that hole even then. The other thing is, I remember back when Core Civic first started, and they were going around the country picking up jails, and a nearby sheriff at that time, who was highly esteemed in this area, friend of ours, said, why do they want jails? That's where all the liability is. Why don't they go after process serving or something to take on as a business model? And make no mistake about it, if we're going to take over, especially state prisoners, we're going to be taking over liability that really the state ought to take. And so my question is, why aren't we asking the State Department of Corrections to take over their own prison if you want to get away from privatization? Why is it our responsibility?
Councilman Nash, is your question to the sponsor or to Sheriff Hall?
Whoever would like to answer that one, maybe both.
Is this one on? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know it. Can I sit down a minute? I'm on medications. I tell you all that. Full disclosure. I think it's important to just hear Councilmember Nash's way of thinking in the sense that they are state prisoners. They're doing time of 1 to 6 year sentences. And and how you treat that population is different. It is. It doesn't mean we can't do it. I just want you to know you're treating it would be a prison. You're paying for the prison. At least from where I sit, it can be done. Sheriff's office can go do it. We'd probably be the only place in the country I've ever heard of that's running the prison as the jail, as the sheriff. But the part that you hinted to that we have in our report is it's a $4 million takeover cost, and that's not the staff. That's just to go get the items turned over to be government now that are private. There's a $4 million initial cost, and then we would surely want to spend the time to be able to come back to you and say, and it's also whatever that number would be above what the state is doing. So there's a takeover cost and then an annual cost that I'd surely want to be a part of if we move forward.
All right, thank you, Chair. So I think, so I didn't get the whole question because I was talking about whether we should question or not, but I do think that the way I understand the law is that the state will cover those transition costs as well. But I think that is something that we absolutely should suss out.
And the more important question, at least in my mind, is why do we want to take over the state prison? Why not get the Tennessee Department of Corrections to take it over if we want to get away from privatization?
Absolutely. So this is something that the state offers, that the state asks different counties to do. At this point, 19 counties, I believe, do that. We are one of them. And these are local felons that are housed between 1 and 6 years. And all the counties around the state that do this with the state, with the exception of Shelby County and Davidson County, they're felons with 1 to 3 years. But they are local felons, and it's important that we keep them here. Their families are nearby. They've committed their crimes here, and certainly they're serving their time, but we want to do all that we can to help them perhaps get out and enjoy not going back. As I understand it, that is not what they have contracted with counties to do. Actually, that is exactly, they have contracted specifically with counties in order to do this, because the state couldn't handle the volume going back many years, a couple of decades. I'm thinking that was like 88, 92? Yep.
All right, Councilman Glover, you've got about 2 minutes left from Councilman Nash. Where are you?
Okay, so let's try and get this wrapped up, and I'm going to call on Mr. Cooper and Sheriff Hall, please. Given the complexity of this issue, the potential for a pretty drastic increase in cost on the taxpayers of Nashville, and understanding the budget cycles, we come into this every year via the state, local, federal. It's just something we do in the government every year. Sheriff Hall and Mr. Cooper, could we effectively do this in this budget cycle right now and assure the taxpayers of Nashville there wouldn't be a $20 million cost or something that would be devastating? Because, and Councilman Nash has already said it, we got a pretty big hole we're trying to dig out of. Would there be any possibility that we can assure taxpayers that we're not going to make that kind of mistake? And when I say mistake, we don't have $20 million. Right. So I'll hush and let you guys answer, if you would, please. And I realize it's a best guess, but if you would give us what you think on that, please. Thank you.
Let me say I'm not a legislative or a legal-minded person. That's not what I decided to do 33 years ago. So here's my dilemma. This thing says 2022 as an idea. My suggestion, whoever said it's right, I don't like the date on there, although I gave that's how long we need. My point is, there's so many uncertainties even in my world of being able to tell you what it would cost. We need to figure out the state and all that. There's no way I could do it without the money additionally needed from whatever you get from the state, right? There's no way in the world they're going to give you what it cost me to do it. There's no way. They may give you some negotiated rate. Because, by the way, in Memphis, just so you know, that $69, it's twice that in Memphis. Their reasonable allowable cost back when we were doing this was $110. So their cost on the forms was twice what they're getting today. So I'm just telling you, we can't do it for what I don't want to do it and wouldn't do it unless I was legally forced to do it, unless we get the money and on our own time. which means let us get this other stuff done and sit down and figure out, can you get that cost back? Or we couldn't do any of it.
I think the question was whether we could do it in this budget cycle, and I think the answer would be no, which is why the 2022 date was put in there. And hopefully between now and then, we would have an idea of what the actual cost would be and what the state would actually pay us, and then we could budget accordingly.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate both of y'all being here and explaining a lot of really complicated information to us. I've got a short-term question. If, regardless of what we do, there's a decision that's out there for the next 2 years with regard to what's going to be, how these prisoners will be handled, and I think we've all clearly stated that we are not comfortable with the top motivation being an incentive of more prisoners is better. And so I would just ask, in terms of improvements that have made to the RFP, I mean, the questions I've asked people who deal with people coming out of prison is, you know, what kind of programs are important, and what kind of specific criteria could we shift what we base success on, and therefore some of the payment. And suggestions were made on things like literacy or GED success or whatever. Can you speak a little bit to what's in that RFP, and if it, at least in this interim, is going to create a better situation than just more prisoners is more money?
Yeah, that's my favorite question, by the way, just because it's what we focus on in our own world. I mean, I'm the only person you'll ever meet who's trying to put himself out of a job. That's who I am. It's always been. It's not tonight. It's not because I'm sitting in front of you. Anybody who knows me can verify that. And so the reality is, I hinted to something earlier that said, you know, we raised the bar by saying you must be accredited. Now, that doesn't sound like much today, but back in the 90s, that was like climbing a mountain. No one knew what that, we couldn't even spell that in the sheriff's office. So today, we're at a place where if we, as a community, wanted to say, and just let me make up something, we wanted everyone to have yoga mats, I'm just talking about something, and you write that in the contract, then they should have to live up to what you asked them to do. Literacy, GED. So what we did at some conversation with the activists and the committee we had, was to say, and I told them, I've been very honest about this, I look at it as a state responsibility. And so when the bid or the RFP process came around to me, it's not that I don't care about those people, but I have my hands full doing my own work, and we're very deep in programming. So when it comes passing through and it's a state responsibility and the state's money and the state's prisoner, I haven't said, wow, let's go over there and do all these fancy things that we do. We do a lot of creative programming. So I don't ever like blaming them. We've never told them. Now, the bar is not extremely low. It's just lower than ours, the way I see it. So what happened was, in this RFP that's floating around to be, hopefully someone will be awarded the contract and continue the service if that's where we're going, it says comparable programming to the DCSO. Instead of saying, because we change all the time, we got songwriters inside the jails now helping people not write songs, but understand what led them to this life, what they can help change their world. So I don't want to say you must do X, Y, and Z. We want to say comparable. And I will tell you this. I wrote a note here. I wanted to mention this that may help you as well. Gail Ray was the sheriff and at a time when CoreCivic was running the facility. I was the chief deputy for her. And at the time, turnover was a big issue, and it felt like there was turnover out there higher than ours, and maybe the salaries weren't. I think that's our responsibility to go to them. And you know what she did? She wrote a letter, this is years ago, to the CEO and said, hey, I'm concerned about turnover. They immediately raised the salary to whatever it was, I forget. And the turnover slowed down, right? We all have turnover. I've gone to them with issues. I had one a year ago about visitation. I didn't like the way their visitation system was working. And so my point is, until they start declining what we want them to accomplish, and sometimes in contracts, or sometimes it's pick the phone up and I need you to fix this, I don't know that I don't need to take the responsibility for not having communicated what you want. So so if we want to raise the bar, and we've done that programmatically in the contract, but it's not as strict as 14 GEDs. We want it to be comparable to what the county's doing for its inmates, which I think you'd be very proud of.
Can I ask one more question? I appreciate that answer. How then will you evaluate success? Or is there payment tied to specific things other than just number of inmates?
Well, Okay, so I've been through this argument over the years too, and I say argument, I'm not defending anything. Please don't let me sound like that. I want to explain kind of the controversy of the rates varying based on how full you are. What we do is we send an RFP out and say, how much would you charge us per day to house a prisoner in your facility? And their rate is across the board. So therefore, if they have 10 inmates or 100 inmates or 1,000, it's that dollar per day across the board. There have been contracts historically over the years that varied, went up or down based on your population numbers. And so I had some folks years ago look into this. This doesn't help them or hurt them as far as I can tell. But it basically says just cut the costs all the way across. Tell us what your per diem is going to be, and your job is to figure out, where you house them, how you do that within the facility versus if you're 70% full, you're going to get one rate, and if you're 80% full, you get another rate, because there was all this debate, may be right, I don't know, that encourages filling up the facility. Clearly, the more people, I'm sure there's more profit, if you will, but I don't, and let me get one other issue out here. I'm not talking federally or at the state level. I don't know if they lobby bills. That's not what I'm talking about. But I want you to understand that Core Civic doesn't have the authority to accept a prisoner or release one. We do that. We tell them when the person's ready to go and when they're coming to them. And so they don't get to the way it's set up. They do not get to, there could be a disciplinary sanction if they mess up. But I just don't want it to be perceived that they're making release decisions. They do impact if the individual is acting out and so forth.
Councilwoman Suara.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm going to address the sheriff, and I just want some clarification. If I heard you right, you'd said that the city or Metro can do a better job than Core Civic. That if you do take it on, you believe that it could be done better.
I think we have the best people in the country doing what we do.
Okay. If we do take it over and we're able to get the additional rates from the state, we will be able to hire more people and do a better job. Would that be a correct statement?
Okay, look, in this report, I know it's not what you're asking me. We did it two different ways, just so you know. One of them was to just walk out there and move the CCA Core Civic person out of the way and put a government person. That was what we called like to like. The other one was if we took it over and did it to the level that you're asking me, can we? That's where that cost would go up, because we would do it differently in the way that it's being done now. Yes. We would hire new people. We would go out there and do what I think is a better job. But there is another way to get a better job, too, I don't want to ignore, is we've never told them to do it exactly like us. I'm not saying they can or can't. I'm saying we've said just do it this way. So I'm not saying it would match perfectly, but I want to be careful that it's a little bit apples and oranges, because we've said as a prison, and just come in here, and we being the contract, we don't tell them that you must release planning, and we don't require them to do various things, because it should be more modeled like the prison system. The jails are doing things. Imagine this for a second. 1,000-bed prison sitting next to a 1,000-bed jail. The 1,000-bed prison turns over 700 beds a year. We turn over 36,000 beds. So what I want you to, we're doing this all the time, so in some ways it would be weird to say, and by the way, get ready to release people, So I just want to be careful. We can raise the bar if we took it over. We can also raise the bar if we said, we want you to do X, Y, and Z. Keep in mind, if we say that, the state of Tennessee has to pay for the higher bar. They're paying the dollars, whether it's private or public. I just want you to understand that. I'm not debating which is better.
All right. Thank you. And in terms of the liability that CM Nash was asking about, if we will be taking that on, right now, is Core Civic taking on the liability, or is the state still responsible for that? So he was concerned that if we took it on, we might be taking on the liability. But right now, it's still a state prison, and Core Civic is managing it. So are they taking on the liability? If they're not, why would we?
They are not Metro inmates, and so Metro would not take on, or is not taking on, that liability.
So if we manage it, they will still be state inmates. So which is still the same thing. So we shouldn't be taking on any liability if the other managers are not?
I think if we're providing the services, then along with that comes some liability.
Some, but not.
I can't say for sure what,
Okay.
what the extent would be,
Okay.
but there would be liability.
Okay. And Sheriff Fall, what I heard you saying, and that's why I want to make sure that I understand it very well, is that you're not opposed to it. You probably think we could do a better job. You don't think this is the time. We also need to find out about how much reimbursement, if we can raise the reimbursement from the state. Would those be correct?
Really close. Here's what I don't agree with. I don't think the sheriff should run prisons.
Why not?
Because the sheriff's job is to run jails. The prison system is managed by the Department of Corrections in our country, in Tennessee as well. So from a should we, the first thing I go to is the sheriff overseeing people serving time would be like someone running the emergency room, also running a nursing home. And to me, it doesn't mean we can't, but you're really getting us in the world of sheriff's office, and because we're high volume, high turnover, that's a lot that transitional housing, transition everything. We can do it. I have a lot of pride about our staff. Our staff are very good, I believe, and we're very committed. But it would be a different discipline in a way, because we're now dealing with people who are serving sentences. You're basically in jail cell or prison cells, whereas in our world today, we're getting you to court and getting you to the hospital and getting you. I mean, it's just movement. So I don't want to say that we couldn't. I've told Councilmember Benedict and Councilmember O'Connell, the sheriff's office could do it. There's a couple of factors. The cost would need to be clearly understood, and I'm not sure if I even know it now. We've estimated what we believe it is, and the time. The sheriff's office deserves the time that it would take to do this the right way. And given where we are, that's at least a couple of years away, and then several months to fade into doing it. And so I don't want to be opposed to it, and I don't want to be for it, but that's where I am.
Okay. So the reason why I'm asking all of that, and I'll get back to my last question, is that all of the discussion that we've been having is been based on money, but there's also a component that we're not talking about, which is the treatment of the inmates and the state of the staff in those facilities. There's a lot of audits out there, there's a lot of report out there about how CoreCivic is managed that we really need to look at. I'm talking to someone yesterday, and he said Nashville has come to a place where people talk and all they want to talk about is the money. We should look at this city and this place as a place that care about the people and what happened to the people as well. So our final determination should not bother someone that. But if we can do better or find somebody that can do better, and I think that's what we need to do. So I'm going to ask you the final question. If the sheriff office is not ready to take it on, even though we can do a better job, then we could still look at the contract in 2022 and see if the terms and the policies that we're putting in place to raise the bar, if it's not met, that those contracts is terminated. Would that be a correct assessment?
Yes, ma'am, and I'll be the first one to come up here and tell you if that's not happening, meaning if we raise the bar of expectation and that's not happening, whoever the vendor is, I owe you that. We would tell you that. And I think Councilmember Johnson said this too. There was a bill passed in 2017 that actually gives you that opportunity every time to put whoever's in this job on the spot. Why are you wanting to privatize it? Tell me why they're better. I mean, that's already in the books. And so it gives this discussion that every time a contract comes up here, we would be going through where are they and how well are they doing and so forth. So, yes, Councilmember Benedict was very gracious in saying, okay, let's put a date out when she was working on the terms for the bill. I sent her a lot that we're doing just to say, look, we're way over it right now, way overwhelmed with our priorities. Once all that clears, and I ask to find a way to get a new contract in place. We need somebody there. We can't go out and take it over. So this emergency contract is presently there. We have an RFP in the works that we work to enhance some of the requirements. In my opinion, we need to get that done so we can at least start evaluating them on that and then come back to this council at some point and say, we believe it needs to be, changed, turnover, whatever you want to do. But this was done kind of at an awkward time for us. And again, this is the first time I've heard tonight that there's a new way to fund it. When I was talked to about the council members involved, it's going to cost $22 million, and that's okay. So I just want to get comfortable we're all on the same page about what it will cost and when is that date, and I'm surely willing to work to make that happen.
Okay, we've got about 35 minutes left, and we got 5 council people in the queue. So we're going to stick to the 5 minutes per council person so that the chairs, if there are any questions from the two of us, that we can ask our questions, as well as give the sponsor a chance to address any concerns that have come up. So Councilman Bradford.
Thank you. I just got a couple of questions that came to mind listening to both Sheriff Hall and to Councilmember Benedict. So this first question, I don't know if it's for Councilmember Benedict or if it'd be for Director Cooper. It was mentioned that there's 18 or 19 counties that the Tennessee Department of Corrections actually contracts with those counties. Was that a correct understanding of that statement?
I think there are actually only 2 or maybe 3 that have contracts with the state.
Okay, so
At least according to the report, it indicated that there were 3 that have higher rates. But there are 18 that have actual contracts. Okay, this is from the Tasser report, and it's Carter, Johnson, Scott, Washington, Fayette, Lauderdale, Sevier, Wayne, Fentress, Lewis, Smith, Greene, McMinn, Sumner, Henderson, Overton, and Trousdale. But they have the flat rate $39.
okay, so it goes to the next couple of questions I have. As kind of a background, my job, it's a contract-based company. We live and die by RFPs. So my first question is, this current RFP that's out there, are we open to accepting multiple bids, or is this a non-bid contract?
It would be competitively bid and open to anyone that wanted to submit a proposal.
Okay, so, and that goes to the very last question. Since we know there's other counties that have contracted with the state, if we were to, with all arguments that we've had so far, if we were to approach the state and say, look, we don't want to contract with, in this case, Core Civic anymore, we'd rather contract with the state, but, you know, in our RFP or our contract, we could ask for what it would actually cost, correct? Would that be something feasible to put into a contract with the state?
Not sure. I may not be following the question, but you're saying if we, so if, you're saying if we did not privatize anymore and we took over operation, if we could get the state to pay per the contract our actual costs?
Correct.
I think that is the way the law reads. The problem is the state determines what a reasonable cost is. So let's say you raise the bar, as has been mentioned, to include some additional programming. If the state said, well, we don't think that programming's reasonable, we're not going to pay for that, then then the local government would pick up that portion.
So a follow-up question would be, if we have a contract, just like the state currently has with Core Civic, if we have that contract with the state, wouldn't the state have to abide by what's in that contract?
Well, it's different when you're contracting with the state. I mean, what the state could do is say, no, Metro, we're not going to do that. We're going to do it ourselves. And oh, by the way, give us the property back that you have all these facilities on. I mean, that is a possibility. I mean, the deed has a specific reversionary clause that says if you stop housing local inmates pursuant to this grant contract, then the property reverts to the state. I mean, I guess when we started adding facilities to that property, we didn't really think that was a concern, but it potentially could be. So, I mean, if the state could say, well, we think that's unreasonable, we're not going to do that, we'll just do it ourselves.
Okay, and just my last question is, once there's been a proposal accepted, does that come to the council for final approval, or is that just something done between the sheriff's office?
It will come to the council under the 217 ordinance. Council has to approve it by resolution.
All right, well, thank you so much for answering those questions.
Councilman Swope?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Sheriff Hall, thank you for speaking to us and adding a little perspective to this conversation, whether you're for privatization or against it. I think you've been incredibly honest, upright, and open about advantages and disadvantages. This may seem redundant, but I'm hearing a lot of questions from this room still going back to not understanding the difference between jails and prisons. So let me ask this question, but I'm going to add a complication to this. Local sheriffs run local jails, correct? Usually on a municipal basis. Davidson County, Williamson County, et cetera. State prisons are run by the Tennessee Department of Corrections, same way they would be in Alabama or Mississippi or Louisiana, correct? Who runs federal prisons?
The Bureau of Prisons.
And are any of those federal prisons privatized?
Oh, gosh. There are private facilities out there housing federal prisoners in the country.
That's what I thought. So, in other words, from a state and a federal standpoint, it seems to me that I'm going to guess it's about 50-50 out there. It's privatized versus operated by the state and or the federal Department of Corrections. Is that a ballpark guess?
Yeah, I would. These are interesting things. If you talk about facilities, it's one number. If you're talking about people under the care of private and public, you get out in California, these other places. So I would just say there's a large percentage that are private and a large percentage that are publicly managed across the country. Whatever that number is may vary.
Have you ever heard of a municipality trying to get a federal contract to operate a federal prison?
No.
Okay. Then I rest my case. I don't think we should be messing around with the state or the feds as it relates to any of this. I think it opens up an unbelievable can of worms that I don't think we as a legislative body want to go through. All due respect, Council Lady Benedict, I appreciate your intent here. I really do. I just think it's a slippery slope that we're going to slide down really quickly and we'll be 30, 35, $40 million in the hole. And the state's basically going to say, what, are you going to sue us again? Not a good idea. It's not a good idea. We all got to play nice in the sandbox, for God's sake. We're like a half a mile away from one another, a quarter mile away from one another. We need to play a little better. Thank you.
Councilwoman Porterfield.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you, Councilwoman Benedict, for your hard work on this. I know Councilman O'Connell had to leave, but in his absence, I would like to thank him for the work that he's done over the last 4 years on this. And Sheriff Hall, thank you for providing context and background information. And I also want to thank the community members that joined us today. Thank you all for being here. My first question, I believe it may be for Councilwoman Benedict or possibly Mr. Cooper. Will this have any impact? I know during your presentation, Councilwoman, you mentioned the new Juvenile Justice Center. Will this have any impact on the new Juvenile Justice Center?
Could you clarify when you say new?
The facility that they are hoping to have built.
Yes, so the goal would be that, much like with the sheriff's office, we've got new facilities that are opening, which hopefully will fit better the needs that we have for the folks, regardless, whether they're jailed or prisoned, is helping us with inmate care, detention care throughout the city. So much like that, I've spoken with the juvenile court, and our goal would be that once that facility is built, which we don't yet know when that will be, that they very much want to look at finding a way to handle this either with nonprofit or, public employees. And, as far as I'm concerned, nonprofits, I'm fine with nonprofits running our jails. My challenge becomes when you've got millionaires making money while the employees are not getting good benefits in a city where cost of living continues to rise. That, to me, is a core issue with taxpayer money. We have taxpayers giving $11.7 million. Obviously, not all of it is coming from us, but they are making profit. So I think it was $15,000 per day of gross profit that is coming from taxpayers. To me, that's a problem. To me, I think we can do this more effectively, and I think that's exactly when we get to the point where a new juvenile detention or juvenile justice center is built, that allows us the exact opportunity to get that profit out of the equation.
So to clarify, this will not have an adverse impact on the new facility for the Juvenile Justice Center?
That's correct.
Okay, and then there was mention about the state land on Hardin Place, and I would like some clarification on that. Mr. Cooper, are you saying that if the contract is put with Core Civic, that the state could take back that land?
No.
So when the state deeded the land to Metro in 1989, it included a provision that said if you Metro don't follow the terms of this grant contract where we're giving you money to build this facility and to house the locally sentenced felons, if you don't do that, then the property comes back to us. Now, at the time, the only facility that was being built was the initial facility that was operated by CCA. Since then, we've added as I think Sheriff mentioned all of them, you've got a park, you've got animal control, you've got a police fire hall. So it would get messy. I mean, I think Metro would argue, well, okay, you can have back the initial facility, but we're entitled to this other part. I don't know how that would play out, but there is a reversionary clause in the deed.
Mr. Cooper, can I clarify that if Core Civic is not operating the facility, that has no impact on the land? It's
As long as we're operating.
As long as Davidson County is operating that facility, there's no concerns with the land with the state, correct?
Thank you, Councilwoman. That was the point that I was going to make. So thank you so much for sharing that information. Another question, it was mentioned by Sheriff Hall that in other parts of the country, prisons are not being run by the sheriffs. In other areas, Councilwoman Benedict, if you possibly have this information, where other areas have stopped the privatization of prisons, who is running their prisons? Did they go with state, or is it who's running their prison?
And that's around the country?
Around the country, yeah.
I think myriad would be the answer for that as best I can give. I don't really know. I will say, again, going back to I believe it was 18 other counties in the state that are housing state prisoners, those sheriff departments are doing it on their own. None of them are privatized.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, Sheriff Hall, you made the statement that if we raise the bar, the state of Tennessee will...
I apologize, Councilwoman Porterfield. I got to cut you off.
Thank you.
All right. Councilwoman Hauser.
Thank you. I may actually be taking off about where you were headed towards. One of the concerns as a citizen is not only that that I'm safe because those who have offended are taken away from society, but I want to make sure that when they walk out of the door and come back, they're in a better position so that maybe they won't return to prison. And so one of the concerns I have, and I was very delighted to hear the programs that you have at the jails to try to help people get to a better place in life. And I certainly want that to happen in our prisons to whomever is running them. And one of my concerns is the fact that whenever you have the profit motive, then that can supersede unless we have in our contract something regarding the percent of prisoners that return. And I don't know if I've not looked at the contracts, have not looked at the RFP. I don't know if that is part of it. But I certainly, as a citizen, would put higher marks on a company or a government entity that ran prisons and had lower percentage of people that returned to those prisons. And I would, as a citizen, prefer to pay them more than somebody else that was making the however many thousand a day, just churning them and being a door that flips back and forth. And so I would like to hear someone address the fact if that can be part of the RFP so that we can give higher marks to folks who are doing a better job of getting those people to move on to a better place in life.
I think that's a great idea, and I hope that our procurement department is, and I'd be glad to follow up with Ms. Lane to make sure that that is a part of it. I think one thing that we want to be clear about is that, a for-profit prison is about keeping prisoners, right? They get paid based on the number of prisoners they house, and so they have no incentive to reduce the number of prisoners that they have.
Right. The incentive is almost the opposite of what, as a citizen, I would want it to be.
Councilman Roden?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Sheriff, my question was about health care that y'all do out at the facility out there. That you've got inmates out there, both metro and state. Is the health care cost built into the contract with Core Civic based on procedure? Is that how it's done, or is it complete? Because I guess my question is, if someone gets ill and has to go to General or Vanderbilt and is there for 2, 3, 4 weeks, does that cost come from the Department of Corrections? Is that where the money's coming from? If you could just give us a little background on then what percentage of healthcare costs y'all kind of have out there, if you don't mind. Thanks.
Yeah, and this is the bite of the apple I need a little help on. Remember, there's some people out there temporarily. They're women. If you'll let me not talk about them for a second, it's a little easier. We'll try to, because that's temporary and like I said, complicated at best. So the contract requires them to provide adequate health care, meet standards of National Correctional Health. It's got all kind of layers of health care. They provide their own health care on site. One thing that I changed 5 years into my term was I went to the council and said, I want a health department representative on site every day at the facility. I'm not a doctor, nurse, and I want some medical oversight. Not necessarily because I question it, because I didn't like my staff member answering questions about medical. So the health department has a person sitting out there all day, so do I, and that person's job is to evaluate quality of health care and moving forward and so forth. So that's how it works day to day. It's coming out of the contract. They have to provide the care. The State Department of Corrections is the one who covers, I forgot what they call that, extenuating, the ones who are extended into health care, very expensive cases into the hospitals. That's all filed with the state of Tennessee. They pay all that bill. There are rare occasions where the State Department of Corrections will say, well, just send the person on to our special needs facility here in Nashville, and they just move the body person, so they have them on site. But they're responsible for all of that, the Department of Corrections. They're paying for the care through the contract if you're in-house, and if you get moved, it comes from the State Department of Corrections.
Can I add to that? Sorry. The Metro actually has a contract with Core Civic that would be, that is a part of that reimbursement, as Sheriff Hall just said. And so that would remain unchanged. I actually exchanged some emails today on that. And that would remain unchanged. That contract would still be in place so that those inmates get the same care that they're getting today, and it would continue to be reimbursed by the state.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, that is everyone in the queue. I had a question. Given that we've had a history of getting into projects that ended up costing the city more money, is it possible, and maybe this is a question for you, John, is it possible to submit a proposal to the state to see what per diem rate they would agree on before committing ourselves to taking this over?
If the state would agree to do that, I mean, it sounds like at least for the local people, they've tried that several times and were not successful. For the locally sentenced felons, I don't know if the Department of Corrections would kind of give you a front end, okay, here's what we will pay or not.
And this question is to the sponsor, Councilwoman Benedict. Because you mentioned the pay of the employees, so I assume that means that you're wanting higher pay and better benefits for employees, and so that would be an actual higher cost than because the sheriff has said that it's $100 for him to take care of everything he needs to take care of. So his cost would actually be higher if we increase the pay and benefits for the employees, right?
That's not how I understand the state law. Chair, what I understand it to be is, let me back up. When we're lining a corporation's pockets with $15,000 of profit per day, I think that we absolutely could afford a bump in pay for our employees. And those numbers I gave are averages. As reported on Indeed, the sources are in the presentation. Indeed shows that the average salary for a core civic corrections officer is $44,000 and some change. And so what we see nationally is that public correctional officers on average make $5,000 more and have 58 hours of training per year. So that increase in salary or increase in wages would be covered by the reimbursement by the state. I would like to see where things cost $100. I would like to understand line by line or an itemized report that we've submitted to the state to see if it's caught up in wages or where that over $100 per day cost is coming from. I think it would be enlightening for the council and for these committees to understand that, especially for budget and finance.
Sheriff Hall, is it possible to get a breakdown of costs?
Yeah, we can do that, and I can give, like I said, we 7 years ago, I asked our finance folks tonight, 7 years ago, the state stopped requiring us to send it, so I can send the old ones too, but it was a matrix that was pretty easy to but it was simple to read. Back then was over $100, for example, and I can do some more for you. It's what gets a little tricky in here, just hang with me for 1 second. In the jail, right, you're booking someone right now for DUI, and you're booking a person who is quadriplegic. They'll be in and out of the jail in a week, and the cost of doing one of those and the other one is so varying and different. At a prison setting, it's a nursing home. Their detox, their own meds. I mean, it's a much cheaper environment to operate that, cheaper in the sense of the way that jails are operated. So we had to do a cost settlement report for the state for the jail world we live in and for what the core civic numbers were back in those days, and they would come and audit it. They stopped auditing everybody because they didn't send us the money. So I can give you the numbers up until 7 years ago, and we can do, even in here, we did some estimates of what it would cost us if we took it over as we sit here. But, and again, that's our salary differences that we would pay compared to them. One other mention of this, I want to get this out there. I was up here for the juvenile court hearing a few months or weeks back. One of the things I don't like to hear us all do, I'm one of y'all, I'm government, right, we're here. If you want to pay them more, put it in the contract. I mean, it's late to then start blaming. They don't pay enough. Well, you signed the contract. I'm looking at what they're going to, and Sheriff Gail Ray said, look, I want you to pay them more money within the contract because they saw turnover changing. Metro started getting raises and they were leaving them behind. And so in some ways, it's our job to tell them what you expect out of that side of it and make sure that they live up to it. I mean, that's just one other way of getting there. I'm not suggesting you. But I don't like to hear us blame them after it's 4 or 5 years into the contract. We knew when they signed it as a government what we were going to pay them. And by the way, that rate significantly higher than what they're paying at TDOC. I mean, Core Civic would pay more than TDOC today, just so you know.
Corporation has the opportunity to reduce their gross margin by paying their employees better and providing better benefits.
Chairman Pulley.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just a couple of quick questions here. Mr. Cooper, if you could clarify this for me. I wasn't quite sure. I don't have a great understanding. I guess it's the reversionary clause you're talking about. I heard the comment that the land would go back to the state. Can you tell me under what circumstances that's the case? Because I heard a couple different things.
Well, I'll read you the reversionary clause in the deed, which doesn't help much, but a little bit. It says, this conveyance shall be effective so long as Metro continues to comply with the terms of a grant contract between the state, acting through the Department of Corrections, and Metro, entered into on January 12th, 1989. That has been amended and restated a number of times over the years. And it said, of those terms that you have to comply with, said terms include, but are not limited to, the construction of 2 correctional units by Metro on said property. And so then it goes on to say, if Metro fails to meet the obligations under that agreement, then said property will revert to and become the property of the state of Tennessee.
So if we get rid of this contract and we take it over, do we run the risk at all of doing that? If
We could still comply with the terms of the contract if we are housing the inmates.
we have the ability to comply with the contract while we're still running? Okay, that's good. That's what I need for that answer. Next, and this may be a question for Mr. Jameson, has the Finance Department weighed in on this? And if so, what do they have to say?
Yes, the Finance Director, Kevin Crumbo, issued a letter in response to the legislation per, well, it used to be Rule 20. I don't know what the new rule is, but he could not certify the availability of funds. I will acknowledge that preceded the issues with respect to what you have seen, the excerpts from the TASA report and the 2018 Sheriff's Department report regarding the rate disparity. And I just want to put that out there, that what preceded his letter, and we are going to be looking at that issue, just as I'm sure this council will be in the coming weeks.
Okay, thank you very much. And sponsor, you feel free to weigh in and out if you'd like. I'm sure the answer is going to be, well, it's not going to cost us any money, so, but feel free. And the last question is, and I believe this is for Mr. Cooper, and again, I would ask the sponsor to weigh in on it as well. If we all love Sheriff Hall, but if he goes away tomorrow and we get another sheriff or even Sheriff Hall, will this legislation mandate to the sheriff what he has to do, or can he ignore it and not comply with any legislation that says do this or do that, and this is how you run your sheriff's department? I don't know if I asked that correctly, but
I think if the council had an ordinance that says we're not entering into any contracts with a private prison, I don't think that the sheriff could, on his own, ignore that. And I mean, the sheriff wouldn't have contracting authority absent the approval of the council in this situation, would be my argument.
Okay, all right. Anybody disagree with that answer?
I'm on the tail end of my career. I hope you all know that. So I'm looking down the road, and I want this to sound as polite as it can, because it means a lot to me and what you think of me. But this question is important. Metro Legal basically, and y'all know John's moved around a couple times, so Metro Legal actually has said that's not true. And again, I wanted to know this, not really for me. We've talked about this, right? I don't know how long I'll be here. But my real question is, we need to be careful what the roles are. I mean, I have voters too. I mean, I run to be elected to run, I hope, a good operation. That's who gets to decide it. And so what has over the years come up with the council and the sheriff's office is sometimes that gets forgotten. Not who's bigger, better, but my duties are real clear. And the charter and the state constitution is pretty clear on what that is. And so I'm going to read you from Metro Legal's lawyers, just so I'm not arguing with John, but I want to say, the Metro Council cannot limit the sheriff's exercise of the core duties conferred by Tennessee law and the Metro Charter. Since the sheriff's office's core responsibility is custodial control over the jail, the council does not have the authority to direct how the sheriff manages the jail or the time and resources of the sheriff's office employees. Therefore, the Metro Council does not have the authority to direct or compel the sheriff to house certain inmates or to not house certain inmates in the jail. Now, don't read that as Darren's not going to do it. That's not him. This is bigger than this. But I think this council, I need that to be understood, because whoever's next, if this lawyer here is right, doesn't want to house prisoners in their prison, they're in their jail, because of certain reasons, I worry about where we would be. Now, I'm not arguing there's other reasons, but I mean, my point is, I want to be careful that we respect that, and therefore whoever's in this job needs to be in those conversations moving forward with you so you know where the lines are.
Yeah, I asked the question because you made the clear distinction between running a jail and running a prison, and if we basically get rid of any contractual obligation here with the state, then we're asking you to run a prison at that point?
So I think, let me clarify.
Okay.
I may have answered the wrong question or answered it differently. I was answering the question, if the council says the government is not contracting with a private prison operator, could the sheriff then go around the council and contract with a private prison operator? I think the answer to that question is no. If the question is, if the sheriff says, I don't want to house in-state locally sentenced felons, and the council says, no, sheriff, you're going to house them, I think the sheriff can say, no, I'm not, under his constitutional authority.
Okay, that's good. That's the answer to my question. I have nothing further, Madam Chair. Thank
Okay.
you.
We do have a new person in the queue who's going to ask a very quick question, and we're going to let, after that, let Councilwoman Benedict close us out. Councilwoman Stiles?
Thank you, Chair. Very quickly, so Sheriff Hall, you mentioned earlier that we have never specifically asked for Civic for any particulars, but in the past you had asked, or your predecessor had asked for an increase and it had been given. Is that something feasibly that we could do? We could give you a list of things that we wanted from Core Civic and send that in and see what they say.
I think the answer is yes, yes, yes. And just so you know, Councilmember O'Connell, I know he's not here, was in the room with us, and I looked at him and said, because he was very passionate about this subject, send me everything you want. It's critical timing because we were putting this RFP process together back in October, November, and also lead activists in this community. What do you want? And so we got these 20-something plus things, which I think were improvements. I mean, I looked at them myself. I was there, but we had to work on language like you wouldn't want to say, I want X done today. I mean, GED is not even a term we use anymore. It's high set and all. So I think the answer is yes. I will tell you that train is probably pulling out of the station as to right this minute because we need I'm talking about weeks now. We need that contract out on the streets because we're under a 6-month, I think it is, emergency. And this thing takes a long time. But let's assume that what you ask, and we had it done tonight. Here's the good news. That's carried to the state of Tennessee. And I'm just talking language here. If they get paid $68 a day to do it, let's just say, this new RFP raises the bar, adds things that we've already added to it, and now it's $98. You know who pays for that? You don't pay 1 penny. And so we're raising the bar with expectations. The cost will go up. There's no denying that. And whoever's awarded the contract should have to meet that bar. So the answer is yes, but we're all very late, and we had your colleague in the room with us to help kind of filter that for us.
Were you done?
Just really quickly to respond to what he just said. So as you say that there are only weeks left, if we had a guesstimate on a turnaround time that we came up with this list of items that we're asking for to see what could happen, what would that time frame be? Could we get you something in a week and that still be able to get in the pipeline?
Do you mind? I see one of the people who does this for me in the sheriff's office, John Hudson. Do you mind coming to the? This is over my pay grade. What he's going to talk about. So he's the chief of administration in the sheriff's office. He does all the contracts.
We're going to run over a couple minutes.
You probably have about 1 minute because I do want to give Councilwoman Benedict the opportunity to close us out with comments.
Streets next week, so I don't think we have a whole lot of time. I think that's where we are.
All right, Councilwoman Benedict.
Thank you, Chairs. So I've got some questions that I definitely want to get at least put out there and hopefully get some answers for us prior to Tuesday, if possible, in the next committee meetings. I did want to answer one question that Councilman Nash had with regards to personnel cost and training. And the reasonable allowable cost says the direct personnel cost of both full-time permanent employees and part-time employees will be considered a reasonable allowable cost, as will personal benefits, including insurance programs, retirement programs, and other employee contribution plans, which are provided by the county. So right there, direct personal cost would cover anything like training. So just to follow up on that point. So, Sheriff, you mentioned being able to send us the cost analysis from 7 years ago, specific to Core Civic, right? You said you've got but they're separate, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. And when do you think you could get that to Mr. Cooper?
Next week.
By Tuesday, before council?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. We also talked about, now may not be the time, which is why I built in June 30th of 2022, is to allow us enough time to get the facilities open that we're doing and take care of everything on the sheriff's plate. Again, it's important to me that we set people up to succeed so that we can make sure that the city is taking care of our responsibilities. I guess one question that I had is the state and Metro have agreed to run this prison. So is it your position that you would like to exit that agreement rather than taking on responsibility for running the prison? I'm just trying
I
to.
was writing your notes on your last, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the
Yeah,
front
no
end of
worries.
that. I'm sorry.
Sure, no worries. So the state and Metro government at this point, right, and for always since this has been around, have agreed to run this prison. Are you suggesting that if we want to take that, are you saying that it's your position that you'd like to end that agreement altogether rather than take over responsibility so that instead of running a nursing home, you're just running the emergency rooms?
Okay, so unless it's done on the sheriff's office terms, the answer is I don't want to do it. And what does that mean? I want it done at a time where we can do it responsibly with the right amount of money. I don't know what the money is. And I mentioned you, so we're talking about years. We need a present. So I'm not saying forevermore, but until all that's cleared up, I would not be saying I'm willing to do it.
So money really is the issue.
Money, time.
But we've addressed time,
Well,
right?
no, we haven't. I have a facility over here that's 2 months behind. What if it's a year from now before I open it? So I don't want to sit here and say I can agree to that. I can agree that I'd like to see if the city decides to do it, to move out of the private, if that's what you're asking me, privatization going out. That's not my concern. My concern is the sheriff's office going in and doing it on our time and on our terms. I mean, whatever the dollars are, I don't agree that you're going to get the money that you think you're going to get. So if we can do that, I'm all for it. Then we still have additional money because it's going to cost more than $69. And will that money be in the budget, and can we commit to 3 years down the road getting it? Those are questions that are huge for me to say, but I'm not opposed to doing it, but it needs to be on terms that we can live with on our side.
Absolutely, and that's the whole point of this, right? That's why we have a joint committee meeting, and we're also going to have additional joint committee meetings as well as 2 more votes on the floor as to work through those details. The last, and I know we're right at 6 o'clock, chairs, if you can please indulge me for a couple more minutes. So I just want to clarify, you don't care to exit that contract. If this was your responsibility to run this prison, which it is actually right now, it's under your responsibility to oversee this prison operation, are you saying that you'd rather not have that? You'd rather run the emergency rooms, just the jails?
Today, we oversee the contract. We're the monitor of the contract. That works okay. That's not a huge burden to me, except it confuses everybody because they think it's a jail. So that's frustrating and so forth. I think it's a state responsibility. In an ideal world, it would be with the state of Tennessee. That's what I think.
Okay.
If the city decides differently, then I'm not in a position tonight to say that we wouldn't take it over, but unless we can have once we get the time and the money arranged.
Okay, thank you. A couple other questions for you. You want to hold the mic? What is a locally sentenced inmate?
Good question. Locally sentenced is a 1 to 6 year person that's in the TCA code, I'm sure, the way that's worded. I believe originally it was to allow the individual to stay local, not necessarily just in physical location, but the courts maintain jurisdiction over that case for 6 years.
And where do we keep those inmates here?
All in one facility.
Only in the MDF?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless they're being transferred a day or two later, right.
And where will they be kept in the future after the new facilities that you have opening?
At MDF.
They're not moving?
No.
Okay. And one other, let's see. On the RFP, I think, so from my corporate business, is that an incumbent is always in a position to renew because there are transitional costs, right? Sometimes as little as 6%, but usually around 20% of the value of a contract. So it's pretty clear we're going to renew with the existing, right? I mean, unless somebody's going to eat that cost, some other bidder, which is not likely. So although it sounds like with 27.5% margin, somebody could. Nonetheless, I just want to point out that with the RFP process, as an FYI for my colleagues, that typically is what we see with these. And then my last question is, because it's Tennessee law, you mentioned that the reasonable cost piece was news to you without the cap. So I'm just curious how you didn't know that. I mean, you run the facility, you're responsible for submitting those financials. I want to understand how that could have been such a big miss.
Yeah, the reasonable allowable cost is, I'm very familiar with that. We've been doing it for 30 years, and we've never received 1 penny more than what's news to me is that anyone, I guess at Shelby County, that's getting $69, which is not their cost. So I just have never seen that. You and I have talked many times. You and I talked as if though we were going to pay $22 million to do it. It wasn't going to be. So now there's a way you think it won't cost anything. My history is that's not doable. I've been through 3 different mayors, 3 different directors of law, and 3 different finance directors. If we can, then we're in a totally different place. But that's the news to me. I'm very familiar with reasonable allowable cost.
Okay, thank you. I think.
With that, sorry, Councilwoman.
Can I just bring what I'm going to bring to Tuesday? Is that okay?
If you can do it in 30 seconds.
30
'cause we gotta
seconds.
get out of here.
As an FY, I do want to connect with the state, so I will plan on Tuesday, if possible, to have information from the state relative to the reimbursement rates so that we can begin to clarify, if not totally clarify, the amount of reimbursement that we will receive when we do this. Thank you. Thanks for everybody being here as well.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Outstanding. Good work. Way to keep it running.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.